Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and open up the meeting here for the MCAG Governing Board. It's 3 o'clock, Thursday, September 19th, here in the beautiful city of Gustine. So at this time, I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I will have my colleague from the west side to the right of me lead us, Mr. Silvera.
Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to number 2. Thank you, Scott. For our invocation, we have somebody that would like to do the invocation today. Mr. Ferrer.
If you would like to bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful day, for this wonderful place that we call home. And I ask your guidance over our meeting today, that you would give us wisdom to make the right decisions that affect our constituents and ourselves, and that we have a great heart of a spirit of heart that allows us to get past personal feelings and just do the best business for everyone. We especially want to send a prayer for those that are serving our country and that are first responders that probably have the greatest danger on a daily basis. We ask you to guide over them. And please bless us in this land. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Lloyd. At this time, we'll go ahead and do the roll call.
Director Aguilar. Director Creighton.
Here.
Director Espinoza.
Here.
Director Hogue. Here. Director Lohr. Here. Director Murphy.
Here.
Director Oliveira.
Here.
Director Pereira.
Here.
Director Silvera.
Present.
Director Villalta.
Here.
Chair McDaniel.
Present. Okay, at this time, we're looking for approval of the agenda.
Chair, motion to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Silvera.
If I can make one request, am I allowed to? There we go. If I could make a request for the board's consideration to move item 30, which is the closed session item, to follow item 5, the public comment, as well as item 26 to precede item 16.
Does the maker of the motion?
Yeah,
I have on the motion.
Yes.
Discussion on the motion?
What's that?
Okay, discussion, I didn't understand the changes.
It's to have the closed session at the beginning of the meeting instead of at the end, so that's item 30. So that would be happening right after the public comment on item 5, and then it would be moving item 26 up on the agenda to proceeding 16. So it would be the first item on the MCAG agenda, which is on page 12.
Call for the vote. Yes, please.
Director Aguilar. Director Creighton.
Yes.
Director Espinoza.
Yes.
Director Hogue. Yes. Director Lohr. Yes. Director Murphy.
Yes.
Director Oliveira.
Yes.
Director Pereira.
Yes.
Director Silvera.
Yes.
Director Vialta?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Was that?
The chair only votes in the event of a tie.
So this time we'll go to public comment and then move into closed session. So at this time, we'll open up public comment.
Sure. Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is John Case. I'm here with a couple of hats. Thank you, directors, for allowing us to come up and speak on those items on the agenda. I am here to represent not only myself as a resident of Los Banos, but also I'm wearing the hat as the chairman of Los Banos Planning Commission, as well as the president of the Los Banos Chamber of Commerce, among others. I want to talk about the RTIP item quickly. I have to go to a farm to table dinner that's happening tonight, and I have to set up sound for them, so I got to get out of here quick, otherwise I would stick around and apologize for that. But at any rate, it is important for us to, as Los Banos residents, to look at the west side as a economic corridor that really hasn't been taken advantage of. And I believe that one of the big fulcrums for that to begin evolving is the RTIP consideration for the Pioneer Street project. And I implore the directors to really consider if we'd like to see the west side come of age, if you will, in the 21st century, to develop economically on that side and take advantage of that east-west corridor that we do have for commerce, as well as the north-south corridor of I-5, and the fact that I don't have to mention probably to all of you that Los Banos is really the only community between, say, Tracy and as far down south as, I don't know, maybe 198, with a really heavily traveled east-west, north-south corridor. And I really ask that the directors of the MCAG consider that the Pioneer widening is makes that as high a priority as possible, and I really greatly would appreciate that. I look forward to staying in Los Banos for many, many years. I've been there since 1989, and I hope to not be gone before we see the project, at least of the Pioneer expansion, take place, as well as potentially seeing some really good, strong economic development take place on that west side. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi there, good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Marshall, and I'm a real estate and development manager for Stonehill Homes, Ranchwood Homes, and Mr. Greg Hostetler. And unfortunately, Mr. Hostetler is unable to make it today, but I'm here in his place, and also on behalf of our organization. And I wanted to come and present something to many of you Merced County community leaders. Mr. Hostetler and our organization has, for any of you that know, that we have been involved in housing and other development in Merced County, primarily in Los Banos and Merced, for many decades. And we have partnered with the City of Los Banos as well as LAFCO for many, many years, and they've done an incredible job. And if Mr. Hostetler were here, he'd probably say, I don't know if Mr. Bill Nicholson is here from LAFCO today, but if he was here, Greg would probably say something to the fact of, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me, that Bill and LAFCO have done a really great job at always doing what Greg has needed, but maybe not always what he has wanted on his wish list necessarily. And for those of you that may know Mr. Hostetler, that would come with a little bit of chuckle as well. But one of the talking points, although to follow the gentleman right before me, is to talk about Pioneer Road. And although it's not an agenda item, it is a public forum item that we would like to bring to the table. This is a project in particular for our organization that we are in severe support of for funding for the west side. There has been funding that has been dedicated to the east side, the west side, significantly needs it, particularly for Pioneer Road, for the widening and improvement of Pioneer Road for the residents of Los Banos, as well as people coming through Los Banos to get some of that traffic off of 152, which is significantly hindering the traffic and travel flow, not just for the residents, but for the schools, for the kids going to these schools. And so we would like to definitely support that, support the awareness and bringing to the attention of all of you members, funding is needed for that. And we support that for not just for current development, but future development as well. And my last comment is just really, with the lack of the funding, making Pioneer Road a priority project is truly a needed project for, not just for the county, but for the state in general. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Mercedes Encinas, and I was born and raised in Gustine, but I am currently a resident of Los Banos. And I would just like to touch bases on what Tiffany was saying. I currently work for Stonefield Home, and I think it is very important that we make it important that we draw some attention to the Pacheco expansion, or the Pioneer expansion, I'm sorry. I do think that with living there, getting from one side to the other, it takes about double the time in the morning, double the time in the afternoon. I know for myself that it's very tricky. There's accidents that happen almost every single morning. And I think that a way to reduce that would be to make Pioneer as a way to get from one side to the other. And I really do think that it would be beneficial if we take some initiative to get that into effect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Sherwood. I'm from Los Banos. We have the R.C. Sherwood Grain Company. And Highway 152 Pacheco Boulevard is one of the most traveled roads east and west in the state, and one of the most congested. We've been talking about an overpass for 50 or 60 years, or not an overpass, a bypass. I believe that the Pioneer situation is probably the most economical and probably the timely, quickest thing to relieve some of that traffic for the traffic that goes through Los Banos. If you can take it out at, say, Ward Road clear to Volta Road, or even, I think Volta would be the best bet. You would solve your problem for a number of years. Now consider we pay more gas tax than any state in the nation, close to $1 a gallon, and especially the trucks. It's the only thing to do. We sit back and we watch for the last 10 years the communist Democrat train to nowhere. 20 billion wasted on that. Well, we could have had Temperance flat, we could have had 99 and 5 widened. I would believe that you people locally here would give serious consideration to this bypass. If not, you're going to have more wrecks and more traffic jams in Los Banos. Please consider it. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Whitehurst from Los Banos. I know there are many of you, and I'm really pleased to be able to stand before you and speak about this project, which Mr. Sherwood made direct reference to the age of this discussion. They say you can't turn the clock back, but Lord help us all. Los Banos is working very hard to incorporate the widening and improvement of Pioneer Road to the equivalent or greater capability than Highway J14, Highway 165, a great deal of Highway 152, a great deal of Highway 33, all state facilities. Talking about improving Pioneer Road to a state, to a level of service greater than any of those three. All of this for the purpose of rerouting through traffic around the city's major thoroughfare, Pacheco Boulevard. And one thing that's rarely referred to is the fact that Pacheco Boulevard for the last 60 years hasn't been Pacheco Boulevard alone. It now is also shared by State Route 152 and State Route 33. And so any traffic we reduce, any impacts from through traffic that we mitigate with this project will be benefiting Caltrans, the state of California, and the U.S. transportation system across the state in very mathematically calculated amount. And so it's a cooperative project that now we're talking about a project that looks almost identical to the original proposed bypass. And I say that with special quote-unquote emphasis, that was designed for exactly that same purpose. And since then, it has evolved into a variety of different projects and designs that raised the original $12 million price tag in 1962 to approximately $485 million in its most recent full-blown design, the full freeway passing around Los Banos on a stretch of road that doesn't have freeway status anywhere else. So now we're looking at a road that looks pretty much like a nicer J14 or a nicer 33, certainly the equivalent of 452, and for approximately $40,000. So $40 million. So we're looking at a new age of cooperation, and hoping that NCAG will exhibit that cooperation and share in the funding.
Mr. Whitehurst, your time's up, so if you want to make your last point.
I apologize. That is my last point.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the cooperation.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mark Marshall, Superintendent of the Los Banos Unified School District. And I approach you with two hats. One is a citizen of Los Banos, and the other is the superintendent. Any initiative, when talking about Pioneer Road expansion project, any initiative that will reduce traffic on Pacheco Highway will make it safer for our students. So we really support the expansion of the Pioneer Road project. So we urge you to fund it. So that's all I have to say.
Perfect. Thank you.
David Dees from Los Banos. Many of you already know who I am. I mean, for a long time I was the chairman of the Citizens Oversight Committee for Measure B. Also participated on the Workforce Development Board. I'm currently a planning commissioner for the city of Los Banos. In addition to that, and most of you don't know this, I'm a private investigator and I work on class action lawsuits. The reason what a class action lawsuit is, there's usually someone that does something really bad, and someone has to go and investigate that and prove it. That's my job, and I've done that for about 400 times over the course of my 16-year career as a private investigator. My largest, we were able to bring $590 million back to shareholders based on city court doing some very bad things and us finding out about it. A lot of that's irrelevant, which is good. I never want to be in a class action lawsuit against any of you guys. The reason I'm standing here today is because I heard some rumors that something was going on Pioneer Road that would change the game. Well, I remember when I was chairman of the Citizens Oversight of Measure B, there was this sense, and also when the measure came out, there was this sense of we're going to share. We're all going to collect the money and we're going to spend it out on projects in our local communities so everyone can share in the benefits. And I was, man, that's a great thing. And I was glad to be a part of the committee, and I think we did really good work then. What I'm concerned about is when I hear about, I've heard rumors that this Pioneer project is going to get put off to the side. We have traffic that's at record levels. We've never seen this much traffic on Pacheco Boulevard right now. We have pollution that is causing, I mean, it's record amounts of pollution as well. I understand the transit agency is looking at possibly doing some kind of changes to Pacheco just because of that. But there's one more personal thing I'd like to tell you. Back about 2 years ago, my daughter and my grandkids were in a car. They were right on Pacheco Boulevard, and there was a big truck behind them. They were parked at a stoplight, and well, the truck behind them didn't slow down, so they helped it stop. Of course, all of them went to the emergency, and they're okay now. But the fact remains, that road is dangerous. We need alternative paths throughout our city, and the city is growing. So this project, which I think is well thought out, I've reviewed it, it's well thought out, and it's something the city needs. I encourage you to do everything you can to move it forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else?
Hey, my name's Tom Higbee. I'm also with Los Angeles, and I'm also one of the planning commissioners too, so I kind of wear that hat as well. I think it's very essential that we keep this Pioneer project as far as priority. Pioneer, as you've heard everyone say, has been more congested now. It's more dangerous than it's ever been. And, for a number of years, we've had, Los Angeles projects have been the #1 priority. It never ever seems to happen. At this point, planning commission is one of the things we've been doing is, working with state regulations, things like that, as far as, implementing, plans for low-cost homes, things like that. So our city's only going to be growing from this point forward. So we need an alternate to, Pacheco Highway right now. And as I said, it's been, in plans for a number of times. Pioneer's been looked at for the expansion in the past. And, what's happened since then, we've grown. The cost of the project is skyrocketed, in fact, that we didn't implement years ago. So I think it's very essential that we keep it as a priority and actually go forward with it this time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, at this time, we will move on to the next one that we move forward for closed session. So I'd ask everybody to step out of the room, and we need to turn the microphones off.
Before you go, statement regarding closed session, the facts and circumstances creating significant exposure to litigation is the adoption of the Regional Waste Management Authority by the Regional Waste Management Authority Board of the final initial study and mitigated damage declaration for the landfill gas to energy project. No directions given.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We'll go ahead and go to number 6, the minutes. This is an action item. Can we take A, B, and C all together?
I will take A, B, make a motion to approve the minutes from all 3, A, B, and C.
I have a motion? Second. And a second. I think all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And with one abstention. Motion passes. Next we'll move to number 7, and I think we have somebody here with the advisory committee. Paul here. Okay. Then we'll move on to the Transit Joint Powers Authority of Merced County. We'll move on to number 8, Joint Powers Authority of Merced County monthly update.
Thank you, Chair and Directors. I'll make it brief. We did have interviews for operation maintenance contract. We're still going through the actual contracts and the bids. We're going line by line, make sure we're capturing and make sure we're being very thorough. We're hoping to bring something next month to this board. Well, fingers crossed. Real quick update. This week, there's elections at Merced College for Merced Bus for You, for Me, which is basically a fee to increase the student's tuition by $9 to provide service to all students throughout Merced County on the tuition system. Any questions so far? Sorry.
No need, I like to ask my questions. Really quickly, I heard the other day, this Merced College actually goes into Madera County a little bit. Chowchilla is actually in the Merced College district, and maybe that there was some concerns because it doesn't provide any ridership into Chowchilla.
So, in the past, Chowchilla used to have a bus that used to come to Merced to transport, and that's when they used to get transferred over. We don't get any funding through Chowchilla, so we don't provide service for Chowchilla. We do provide, we have an agreement with StanCog to get funding to provide service to Chowchilla, but not towards Chowchilla.
Is that something that they could amend later on to, if they wanted to come up with some kind of funding that they could as part of this deal?
That would be a NPO function, because it has to do with funding with other counties.
The vote that's before the students now would be for the fee that would essentially be subsidizing their fare box to ride the system. So if there was going to be any kind of an agreement, let's say between the college and the transit agency, there would have to be some kind of an analysis of what a cost of a run like that or a shuttle like that would be. And then I see it as separate. It would be a separate agreement to establish a service that they would fund, but it would not be limited or changed by the action that the student body is making right now.
Thank you.
And so the final update, the ridership for our month of August, we had 71,000 rides. Of the 71,000 rides, 19,000 was for Measure B. And of the 71,000, 6,000 was Houston Merced students. 6,100 was just students at General Merced College, high school students. And then 36,000 was just general public. Any questions for transit?
Yeah, Paul?
In next month's report, can you put miles driven?
Sure.
With that ridership?
Yeah, we can do that, no problem. So just for that particular
I
month.
want to see how many miles are driving per ride.
Okay, no problem. All right, any questions?
Okay, move on to number 9. Local Transportation Fund Reserve Policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last year in November, we brought an item to the board to do a policy for our LTF reserve. At that time, we actually, our current contractor was terminating the contract, so we put this on hold. So now we're bringing this back to the table. In the next couple of months, we'll be going through several items, just talk about what TJP uses, what they use for the LTF, how the LTF can be used, and how has it been used in the past. That'll be in October. and November, we'll bring it back for a concept discussion amongst this board. And then in December, we'll bring the draft to see if there's any changes, and in January, there'll be a final reserve policy. Any questions?
Yes, Paul.
On the LTF, since I'm new at this, when do we meet our obligations so we get our LTF, it stops going there, so that the cities get their LTF money back?
What do you mean, the city get the money back? So the way it works is, we get an estimate from the county. So for example, this year, we got, I think, about 7.75. And so it goes.
Million.
Yeah, so what happens is, it goes first the transit gets first crack at the money. You know, you got transit, and then you have the arts, and then it's the planning, then it goes to the cities afterwards.
So is that set up that way forever, or until we meet our certain needs in the transportation with the bus and yards?
And that's the way the funding LTF is set up.
Permanently?
And that's how it's written in the LTF guidelines. You have to meet the unmet needs for transit riders first, and then planning, then whatever it does, it goes to the streets.
So that's the question I have. When do we meet those needs? Never? We have to have a goal somewhere where we meet the needs. Where is that?
The needs are determined annually through an unmet transit needs, an unmet transit needs process. So the MPO does that process annually, and there's a whole committee and everything we go through, and then that is also, those needs have to be met before there's any funding used for other purposes. And that's part of the item, well, that's primarily what the item in October is going to be, is
So
just
obviously
the
the
TV.
needs that we do have, so like we'd have like a yardstick when we get to those, would meet those needs.
Right. And so the, like, for example, yards, every, I would say, May or April or May, the board votes on how the funding is actually allocated. So like yards gets $300,000 every year. You know, it's up to the board if they want it or.
So the way it will be happening now is we are starting to do our unmet transit needs hearings in the fall, so we're gonna be starting that process next month, I believe. They'll identify needs, there'll be a determination of whether or not there are unmet needs that are reasonable to meet. We'll get the estimate in January from the county roughly. We'll know what that dollar amount is. We'll start our budget for both TJPA and MCAG to determine what the transit agency needs for operations and to address those unmet transit needs, what the MCAG planning allocation is, and we have a commitment to try to reduce that number on our planning team. And then we'll build those into the budget, and then that will help identify whether or not there's going to be any funding left over from that process, and that happens annually. So the yardstick is kind of, it changes every year. But it comes down to what our allocation is, what the transit needs are, if there were any unmet transit needs reasonable to meet determined, and then we would know that by your budget cycle.
The main gist of my question is, I remember before we had the bus, that money went to the cities, fix
Correct.
potholes and roads and stuff. We've been doing this for close to 20 years now. I don't know anybody that's not being, their needs aren't being met, so I'm asking the question to see when we can start giving that money back to the cities. That's the goal.
Yeah, and I think an email just went out on those unmet, I mean, I've attended a lot of those meetings, you'd be surprised how many folks show up on those unmet transit needs. Yes, Mike?
Go ahead. Not that I need this. You know, part of the unmet transit needs that Stacy and I have discussed in the past, and I don't want anyone to forget about this, is that we'd like a commuter bus going over the hill to Gilroy. And so there's money in the budget that we already approved for them. So we have 4,822 commuters that leave Los Banos every day. And this could be a real shot in the arm for us, because to reduce the carbon emissions by taking people over the hill and then hooking them up with the trains in Gilroy and in San Jose. So I just don't want to forget about that when it comes back to any type of funding that's going to be allocated or not allocated. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy?
I want to echo some of the concerns that Director Creighton shared. I've shared them in the past as well. And I just look forward to having some clarity on the new contractor that we engage, because my understanding of what we've done in the last 12 to 18 months is set aside maybe more than is needed for the transit, because we don't have a lot of visibility into what the cost is going to be when National Express exits. So I do look forward to getting that number so that we can have more clarity on what the LTF policy is. And then, again, we're talking about the reserve on the LTF. I've talked with some staff about this, that the LTF reserve should be a reserve for LTF funding, as opposed to the LTF reserve being a reserve for all things transit related, right? Because right now, I think the approach has been that LTF is the backstop for everything transit related. It should be more of a backstop for LTF if LTF were to decrease. So, just so I have it again in mind, when do we expect to have clarity on, contract, who the next operator might be, and the cost associated with that?
We should begin negotiations hopefully by the end of this month, so it could be as early as October. no later than November.
So I'm willing to be patient. I've been patient, but I just wanted to mention because it's part of the discussion that I'm looking forward to that because at that point, I think is an important time to re-engage on this.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we wanted to just kind of lay this out between now and the end of the year, is to say, you know, we lined it exactly up with that schedule. So next month will be largely educational about what the TDA law is, how it works, what we've used it for in the past, all of that. TDA is the law that establishes the LTF. And then at that time, we'd also be getting, we'll be able to share the numbers that are going to be coming out of the negotiation process on our O&M contract. And then we'll be able to take board feedback, we'll be able to develop a policy. So it's one to communicate, we're starting it again, but it's also to communicate that it's going to be a slow, engaging process between now and January to develop that policy.
Any other questions? Nab, are you done?
No, and the reason why we bring this to the board is to provide transparency to everybody. So that's the only reason we want our transparency in our numbers when we present anything. That's it.
That's it? Okay, we'll move on to the Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority. We're at number 10. Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority monthly update. Marty, welcome back to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a couple of updates to give you today. First one is going to be on our, here we go now, on our 6B liner expansion. I know we have a number of items to go through today, so I'll try to get through these as quick as possible. And first one is on the liner, and I'll have a slide on that a little bit later when we get to that. Last month we had a RFP go out for the landscape irrigation rehabilitation project. That all the bids came back roughly about $70,000 over what we had budgeted for it, so we put that on hold, and we'll look at that again in the spring, whether we have to change some of the scope or whether we're going to add some money to that. Also, the Highway 59 and the Billy Wright lane improvement and scale improvements, those are all in design right now. We have 30% design on one of them, and probably about a 90% design on the Highway 59 one, and we do expect to go out to bid in January on those for construction in spring also. There's our liner. This picture was taken about 2 weeks ago, and we do have liner all the way up to a ditch right there in the middle. It's a little bit further than what you can see. The greater part of it is actual 60 mil liner, HDPE, and the darker stuff is the material that goes on and protects the liner from any of the rock. You can also see the rock in the far right-hand side of it there that's already been hauled in, and that is already being placed on the liner itself at this point. About halfway through that first section of that, there's some rock, and we expect to have that all lined in just a couple weeks. So, main thing we need to know on that one is that it is on budget and it is scheduled to finish on time at the end of October. Moving on to item 11, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's about our blower. I know Brooks has kept you guys informed on our blower project that we already had fixed over last winter. We just finally got the numbers back in July, and we went forward on purchasing the third blower, which made it a lot quicker. That middle blower that you're looking at, well, the one on the left right there in the middle, did go out on us. We had to have some repairs done on that. It was going to be quite a while, so we had to purchase a new blower in the meantime and repair that one. And the purchase, the install, and the rebuild on that was $126, and it's already been up and running for a while. And that's it for the
updates. Okay. Is there any questions for Marty? I do have one thing. I got a lot of text messages and phone calls this weekend. I guess there was quite a crowd going in and out of the landfill on 59. And I've already addressed it, and she said that we're already working on more lanes, but I just want to let you know that I did get a lot of text messages.
It's pretty much every Saturday anymore.
Right.
I'm just surprised that you only got it this Saturday.
I think it was just my neighbors happened to be going. But we are working on that,
yes,
right?
We are.
Multiple lanes for exiting and multiple lanes going in.
For both sites, yes.
Both
We do
sides.
expect, hopefully, like I said earlier, going out to bid in January.
Okay.
For construction in spring, hopefully in April.
Thank you. Paul.
So multiple lanes are great, better hours, longer hours to meet the customer needs. I was caught in that line, thinking there's got to be a better way to service this. We're just all trying to do the same thing. We only have 1 or 2 days a week to do it. So are you guys being creative that way to maybe extend the hours?
Well, we are open on certain Saturdays the whole day. Every Saturday.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, that helps. And then on
Like every
anytime
Saturday
that we,
perfect.
every first Saturday of the month, we're open all day. Anytime after a holiday, we're open all day. I think there's like 26 Saturdays that we are actually open all day.
But
Or 21, I think.
on Saturdays, when the residents bring most of their stuff in.
Correct.
It's not a net loss every Saturday, is it? Do we make any money? I mean, the operation covers its costs?
Yeah, operations are covered right there.
Or does it go up a little bit?
No, it doesn't really go up. It stays about even. We cover our costs right there. I mean, it is mainly for the constituents and everybody else coming in. They can't do it on Monday through Friday.
Yeah. There's no trend or anything like certain times of year, it just gets crazy like.
No, every Saturday, between 11 and 12.
I've been out
between
there a
11
while.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Early is good, up to 9:30 is good. After 10, it starts getting hectic.
And for the record, Paul's my neighbor and he didn't text me.
What are the hours on Saturday?
Most of the time, it's between 7 to 12.
You come back Los Banos, I'll put you at the head of the line.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
I'll go to Woodruff for that.
Yeah. Director Murphy.
I was actually going to mention some of the same thing that Director Creighton mentioned in terms of hours, and maybe it's an item for a future agenda, but personally as a director, it'd be helpful for me to see what would be the cost to keep the landfill open until 3:30 every Saturday. It is open a number of Saturdays, but it's just enough that people question. They say, "Oh, it's Saturday." That's what I get caught in. And then you got, if you want to know for sure, then you got to.
Sure, we can do that.
Website. So having that so we can make a decision and say, yeah, that's an investment worth making, and it would really be a service to our residents, which is what we do.
Well, one thing we did when we first made this here back in 2010, I believe we did this, we noticed that there was no drop off in tonnages when we did this. So it just was, we squeezed the hours in, tonnages still.
And I don't disagree with that, but it just puts a lot more stress and pressure on our residents who are going to serve, right?
Yeah, they find a different way and time to get it there. Yes.
Yeah, well, you work all morning in your yard and you try to get it done so you can get out there and everybody gets out there at the same time. Director Pereira. Oh, I thought you.
No, I did, but my question, I think.
Rodrigo.
I agree, a lot of people don't have time during the week, Saturdays. Same with this.
Is there anything else? Yeah. Well, very good. Now we'll move on to contract authorization for financial advisory service for the landfill gas to energy project. This is number 12.
You want to continue with this one? You want to continue with this one? Okay, we'll go ahead and continue with this one. This is for our financial advisor for the landfill gas to energy project. If we do go forward with the project, we're going to need somebody to give us some direction on financial advising. And we did take on some proposals back in June. We looked at them, all the proposals visually. We interviewed in July. K&N Finance was selected, and at this point in time, we are recommending the board authorize the executive director. Enter into agreement with K&N.
And this will be for services rendered, so there is no payment if no services are rendered.
That's right.
Move to approve.
First.
Second.
And a second. Is there further comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No. With one no. Okay, motion passes. So we'll move on to number 13, contract authorization for recycling and diversion planning assistance.
Correct. This is SB 1383. It's organics, pulling all the organics out of the landfill, all the jurisdictions. At some point in time between now and 2023, we'll be asked to have some collections and pulling all that organics out of their waste stream. And we have asked Rob Hilton from HF&H to put together a plan. And what we've asked them to do is summarize all the requirements for 1383, analyze all the jurisdictions' current programs, and see what it's going to take for them, each and every jurisdiction, to get to that. Also, to provide estimates to achieve those, and to develop any programs that we may have to adhere to these. This is 1383 is like the bill right now is about 120 pages long. It's a pretty demanding bill. There's going to be a lot of record keeping assigned with all this. So in some cases, up to 50 different spreadsheets in certain cases. And also, what we'll have Rob and his team do is come to all the governing board meetings that we need to have in that, and any of the city council meetings that your city council may ask for. We come to those and help out with any of that. After we collect all that material, what are we going to do with it? We've got a bunch of organics that has to be dealt with. Well, we're going to either compost it, take it to a digester somewhere else, team up with another county, adjoining county somewhere maybe. We've got to find out what's just feasible for all those things to do. One of the other things that we will ask, it doesn't have to do with 1383, is have them, if you guys remember about, I think it was in the June meeting, he came in and talked about the recycling. The recycling contract is up and is coming next August, and we'd like for their team to help put some verbiage together on a new contract. And we'd like,
Motion approved.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. Is there further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Yes, Mike?
Yes, we just went through this last night. It's the reason why I made the motion is that all of us are going to have to come into compliance some way or another. And our contract is up in 2021, and we just started, we're going to put out the RFP soon for that same hauler or a new hauler. And believe me, there's going to be a lot of changes throughout the county, so I'm not looking forward to it.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any other comments?
and also, if you do have some other consultants that are on board, they will help with helping them too. They can confirm with each other.
We have
Two's better than one.
R3.
Yeah, two's better than one. Anything else?
Okay, we'll move on to number 14, a public hearing, University of California Merced Landfill Gas and Energy Project.
Motion to table.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Yes, sir.
Since it was noticed as a public hearing, do we still have to open the public hearing?
No, since you're tabling the matter, you will not open the public hearing tonight.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you need to ask for public comment?
Is there
Oh,
public
okay. Just
comment on
making
this
sure.
item?
Just making sure.
Okay. So now we're moving down to 15. So this matter is table. Approved funding transfer to the landfill gas to energy project development budget.
Second.
Okay, is there further comments on this at the dais? From the public? Seeing none?
Table.
Table.
The motion is
Baker, second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Sorry, for clarification, the motion was to lay this item on the table as well.
Oh, sorry. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to move on to Merced County Association of Governments, and we move number 26 up to the front. Because we have folks that, with that one. So number 26 is proposed amendments to the MCAG bylaws and joint powers agreement to change board composition. Number 26. Yes, Mr.
I'm not usually one to ask for this, but been kind of a long day and I've been on the road a lot. And can we take like a 5-minute recess?
Sure. I'll grant you that.
Thank you.
This time we'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, is everybody back? All right. Joe? I saw Joe in the hall. He's back. We'll move on to number 26. Proposed amendments to the MCAG bylaws and joint powers agreement to change board composition. This is an action item. I'll turn it over to Stacy.
This item is one that began over the summer when there was a request to consider scenarios of changing the board composition. And at that time, there was a motion to bring forth an amendment that would be both to the JPA for the JPA agreement and the bylaws for MCAG to reduce the governing board from 11 directors to 9, and would be doing that by maintaining the 6 representatives from the member cities and reducing the number of representatives from the county board of supervisors from 5 to 3. So in your board packet, starting on page 172, the attachments are those draft amendments to both the JPA and the bylaws, and it would essentially reduce the number of, the selection of those supervisors would be left to the county board of supervisors to make.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess I'd first start off and say I think this has become a much more contentious issue than it ever should have been. I think that there was unnecessary contention at the meeting 2 months ago on this item. And, unnecessarily our board meeting was canceled last month because of this item.
It wasn't because of this.
So, is it my turn to speak?
I'm just saying, that was a correct statement.
So it was canceled last month, and I talked to you before you canceled the meeting, and you said that not all of the county supervisors could be there, and that you wanted everyone there, and so because of that...
No, I told you, the request was the mayor of Los Banos had made the request, Mike, so let's get it straight, for the record.
Is it my turn to speak, or is the chair going to address me every time?
I'll just set the record straight.
So I'll show you the respect that you're not showing me. Let me just share what I have to say, and that is that, and I don't know why this item was moved forward in the agenda. I really don't know, but I'm going to assume that it's all for good reasons. But going back to my original point, this has become more contentious than it needs to be. Joe, would you mind putting up the slide? This is the issue that I see. This is the issue that I bring to the board for a solution. And I would say that I'm not looking for any particular solution. What I want to do is have a conversation about the issue that I see. And I think it's an issue that we can solve. And that is that this is the current composition of our board. We have the 6 cities, each with 1 representative. And we have the county with 5 representatives. And there's disproportion in terms of how we are able to represent our constituents. That's the crux of the issue. That's what I want to find a solution to, and I'm not wedded to any particular solution. I'd like to have a constructive dialogue about it, frankly, without being cut off or interrupted or postponed or moved forward or back. And that is that, the ones that are highlighted at the bottom is that the city of Merced, these are 2017 numbers, the numbers are higher now, probably for every jurisdiction. The city of Merced has over 30% of the population of the county. And it has 1 vote, it has 9%, one of 11. And the unincorporated areas of the county have just over 34%. And have over 45% of the board's vote. There's a disproportion. That's the issue that I'm trying to solve. And again, I'm not wedded to anything in particular. But I hope that we as a board can have an open dialogue about this and come up with some constructive ways to address this. Now, if you look at these numbers and say, well, gee, like, I get what Murphy's saying, but that's just the way it is, right? That's just the way that these things are set up. Because that's where I went first. I was like, well, that's maybe just the way that these are set up. That's not the case. So I have another slide I wanted to show, and Joy's got it. And this is too small. I have printouts here. I'll share these with you. In fact, I'll do that now, but I wanted to have something on the screen so the public can see. Let me just pass these down. I'll tell you what it says as you look through it, though. So at the top of the screen is a description of what our board composition is. Essentially what that matrix showed before. We've got 6 cities, each of them have a representative, and all 5 of the county supervisors are represented on the board. That's what we know, right? But if you look outside of Merced or MCAG, we've got 58 counties in the state of California. If you look sort of at our peer counties, and by the way, what I'm going to tell you holds true statewide, okay? But if you look at our peer counties, there's 8 counties. You look at the other 7 counties' composition, and what you'll see is that no one has this type of structure. We are an outlier. Okay? So if you look at San Joaquin County, I've highlighted, they have 3 representatives from the County Board of Supervisors on their COG. Okay, not 5. Stanislaus is the one that does have 5 county supervisors on there, but they give 3 reps to the city of Modesto. Again, balance, right? Equity. Madera County doesn't have all 5 supervisors, it has 3. Fresno County has a much bigger board, so they've got kind of a weighted system where you have to get, you know, the larger jurisdictions and the smaller jurisdictions. It's a double weighted vote. They have 1 representative from the county. The chairman of the board of supervisors is their representative to the county, not all 5. If you go to Tulare County, they've got all 5 members of their board, and then they have 3 members at large. If you go to Kings County, you've got 2 supervisors. If you go to Kern County, you have 2 supervisors. So what I'm doing is just bringing to the board's attention something that I think deserves discussion and deserves a solution. And again, I go back to, I think this has become unnecessarily contentious. I think it's people sort of, you know, what's mine is mine, and I think that's entirely not the right approach. So I do have more to say on this, but I want to pause there and, you know, see what other people think.
Yes, Mike? Walter?
In 2017, in fact, we actually did a study in November 7th, 2017. We have a letter that was submitted to Patrick Pittenger. And it discussed that very item. It says, please consider this formal request from the City Council of the City of Los Banos that the MCAG board consider a study to review the current board makeup. As you know, the current board makeup consists of 6 representatives from the 6 incorporated cities in Merced County and 5 county supervisors from each of the 5 county districts. I'm not going to read the entire letter, but we had the breakdown in 2017. And with the exception of Gustine and Dos Palos and Livingston, the representation was disproportionate to the amount of citizens that we have in our community. And it was still held true then that in Merced County, 45% of the vote was held by the 5 supervisors, with 34% of the population in 2017. And Merced at the time had 31% population and 9% of the vote, as did Los Banos, Livingston, Gustine, Dos Palos, and Atwater. We tried to raise this issue 2 years ago and nothing happened. And like some of the other agenda items that we're going to deal with today,
I wish that the power structure and the inordinate amount of power, when people don't want to deal with things, they just slough them off. And I'm happy that we have new blood on this council, or this board, because I see a new day and I see people that are willing to change. And it shouldn't be contentious, it should be the right thing to do. This board should always do the right thing. And right now, independent of Mr. Murphy's comments, we even had our city attorney look at the findings, and we found the same thing. We found that the disproportionate of supervisors on the board itself. So I want a solution to, I want to make this fair. And one of the suggestions that I thought about came to me about 2 o'clock in the morning. And my quick math, I had to use my cell phone. If we had a weighted vote, that way all 5 supervisors could still participate, and there would be a percentage of a vote assigned to each supervisor. It would still reduce by 2 votes, we'd get to 9, and all 5 supervisors could still participate. So Mike has a point. Our Los Banos Council had a point 2 years ago, but I think the structure 2 years ago didn't lend itself to any positive discussion. Now I think it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes.
If you can go back one slide, Joey, I appreciate that. It's like, I look at it as I was elected to represent a district, and so I think that when you look at those numbers, you guys only want to talk about the unincorporated areas as the only people that we represent. I happen to represent 2 incorporated cities. So my constituent base is about 58,000 people. So which is more than, well, it's half of what you're saying over half of what you're saying is in the unincorporated areas. And so, and I get the issue. It just, so truly, what is the issue? Is the issue that you think, I think it's been said, you think the county has too much representation? Is that because it's safe in saying that? If I through the chair, if I may ask Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, I think, so it's not just that, but I mean, even look at the city of Merced, right? I mean, we've got, over 30% of the county's population, and we have, 1 out of 11 votes. So it's about equity. It's not, I wouldn't target it just at the, you're asking, is it about the county? I think it's a broader issue than that, right? It's just about equity and fairness.
But in the same thing is there's 4 supervisors. Supervisor Parr, I'm not quite sure. Do you represent part of the city of Merced?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so.
And part of the city of Gustine.
And so.
The city limits in Merced?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so everybody, just because you're within the city limits doesn't mean that you don't vote for your supervisor. So all of the other supervisors represent part of that. So I guess that to me is where the disconnect is it's truly, if it's a city versus county thing, well then let's do the numbers. There's 6 cities, there's 5 county. You can outvote the county every time. So there's my frustration there. So I asked myself, because I will tell you, I was a council member at the time, and voted and supported bringing a measure forward from the Los Banos City Council to MCAG to discuss it. And my thing is how do we make this board better? What decisions could you make to make this board better? And I can't see a scenario where any one of these decisions makes it better. You go down to a 3-person, I will tell you right now, I would not agree to that unless District 5 always was guaranteed to have a seat. Because if you do an east-west and then kind of like say an at-large type of for the Board of Supervisors, if I'm the west representative, Supervisor Lowell is the east representative, and Supervisor McDaniel is the, let's call it the at-large. Well, now Supervisor Pereira, who has both, he can go on either side, has the city of Gustine, the unincorporated parts of Gustine, and not only that, but the unincorporated communities of Stevenson, Hillmar, Delhi, Planada, not Planada, Palico, Winton, and Snelling that have no representation. And so to me, it goes back to it's really not, it's not fairly represented. And the COG does a lot of things, right? MCAG is part of a lot of things. But one of the biggest things we do is transportation planning. And there's what I would like to see, and I don't know what the breakdown of it is a slide of how many road miles are we talking about in the different jurisdictions, right? So there's a lot of unknown questions, and I just can't see, and I've not been convinced yet of a scenario where by changing it, it makes it better. I thought to myself, okay, well, what if you see some of the examples here of adding, maybe the two largest cities get 2 members on there. And so you walk that scenario forward, you're really saying that you hope that those 2 members always agree on the same thing, because if they don't, you've now just negated your voice. You just canceled your vote out, so you really have no say in it. And so, I mean, I'm willing to listen to discussion from anybody, and if they can come up with scenarios that, I represent Las Vegas, just like the mayor does. All of the city of Las Vegas is in my district. All of the city of Dos Palace is in my district. And I get it, there's jurisdictional boundaries, and the cities are in charge of certain things in the county. But at the end of the day, those are all my constituents too. And it would be a disservice to them if we went to a 3-person board of supervisors and I wasn't guaranteed a spot on there. I'm sorry, but that's just kind of my thoughts on the ideas, is that I wouldn't be able to effectively help to represent my constituency, because I share constituency with, 3 of the folks that sit in this room.
Derek?
Yes. Yeah, this was one item that I did take to my council. Thank you. Usually they trust me to vote how I want, but this one I wanted to make sure they were on board. And to a man, they don't want to lose our representation of our supervisor. We feel we have 2 votes on the council. And to tell you the truth, this side of the river doesn't want to give more power to the big incorporated areas of Merced, because already on this side of the river, we feel like we get the leftovers at times. It has been changing in the last few years. I'm quite happy with the direction it's been going, and I can't see changing something that works. And if Supervisor Pereira doesn't vote the way we want, then maybe we'll kick him out. But right now, the city council Gustine City Council is on record of not wanting to lose our supervisor representation, because we feel we'd be losing another vote. And there were people here at that meeting from when we talked about it from Santa Anela, and they were also upset to hear that. And you can just imagine what Hillmar would be saying. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Espinoza?
Thank you. Well, I was mayor in Livingston for 6 years, and when I sat as mayor in Livingston, and I had to sit down in the MCAG board representing the community of Livingston, I didn't like it because I did feel that the county had a more leverage than cities. And now I'm sitting as a supervisor. I understand the cities, from the casino, like Supervisor Rivera mentioned, he's been on a council in Los Llanos. But, we're working together. We're supposed to be working together as all the directors together and as supervisors in the county. And I understand the other comments. If I'm not there, I'm thinking that the rest of my colleagues are fighting for me. If I didn't have a seat, or there's 2 people that are not seat, it's a rotating thing that, I understand what the cities are requesting if we didn't have 2 representatives and supervisors. So, I'm not gonna go back and say, well, I'm supposed to say this. I'm clear. I'm always saying what I think. And if I wasn't there, then I would think that my supervisors would be fighting for my district if I wasn't representing the board of supervisors in, on this seat where I'm at right now. And I would be the same thing if, Supervisor Director McDaniel was not represented us in MCAG, I'd be fighting for his district. I've got to keep an eye on it. Because when we vote as a board on supervisors, we're all voting for Merced County. I have, I represent Livingston, I represent the city of Merced, the south part, and that's why I'm trying to work with Director, Murphy in Merced, for the benefit of the constituents that belong in Merced County, that belong in the city. So the rest of the council is not on, the city council in Merced is not here. He's representing them. That's why he's got the back of the rest of the city council and the rest of the city. It's it's on his, they're on his shoulder. And if I'm not on the board of supervisors, then the rest of the supervisors shouldn't be having my back. And I understand that I have a vote. Every one of us have a vote, and I understand. I'm not saying that we should change it, or I understand. But like I said, whatever all the boards decide, if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. I'll be willing to compromise. But if I was not to represent the MCAG board, I would figure that my supervisors, my rest of the colleagues on the board would be fine for me, because I'd be doing the same thing for you guys. And not, then I guess I would just say that.
I like how the discussion is going, but we have to remember we're here to accept or reject this particular proposal. I just want to bring it back to what's being presented before us. Yes.
Recognize. I hope that's not, a subtle way of saying that we can't have a discussion about this.
No, not at all.
It certainly merits discussion, so there isn't anything that's been said that I strongly disagree with. I mean, there's nothing that I strongly disagree with that's been said. I would add a little bit more nuance to it and maybe make a suggestion, and that is, in terms of not being able to represent it. So I don't want to. No one should be unrepresented. Right? I think we have a lot of shared principles here, right? And that's one. The cities. We should recognize that it's not just mayors that are on this, in terms of city representation. We have council members as well, and in some instances, those council members are not elected citywide. They're elected from a district, yet they represent a broader constituency than just those that elected them. Right? And the same, I would think, holds true with respect to supervisors who are elected from a particular district of voters, but have a broader set of things that are important to countywide. Right? So I would question the notion that that you can't represent anyone other than who elected you. And the same holds true, I would say, for the various boards that we appoint directors to, right? When we appoint directors from amongst us to other boards to represent MCAG, that in many instances come from a very narrow set of voters, especially if you're a council member from a district, right? So, I want to share that. I think the more important thing to share, though, is that I don't think that we need to take away. I think there's an opportunity to add, right? And I would hope that that's something that we could discuss and maybe come to some consensus around. I can see why it would be hard to reduce, right, to take chairs away. But I don't think that it should be as hard to pull more chairs up to the table.
Mr. Pereira was in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I represent 52,000 people that don't live in an incorporated city. I represent about 5,500 or 5,886 now that do. And so, I represent more people than the city of Los Banos or the city of Alpine. But I don't think it would be fair to take away their representation and have me say, well, I represent them, or Supervisor McDaniel represents them. I think there's needs that are different between the city, the cities and the counties. And so, you know, and the fact that we have 6 cities represented here, the county could never really force something down the throats of the city. And so, you know, I think the representation is not fair. But if you look up there, you know, would we want to reduce Dos Palos to, you know, 0.2% of a vote? Well, certainly not. And so, you know, I think there's about 104 people that live in the city limits of Merced, right? I represent them as well. So anyways, I kind of like the board makeup the way it is, and we'll go from there.
Supervisor Wall.
Thank you. Agree with Supervisor, agree with Director Sabra, Director Ferrer, Director Rivera. Director Murphy, the Gustine and Los Banos City Councils have considered this. Has Atwater, City of Merced and Los Banos Councils had the opportunity to speak about this?
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we did. I mean, we took a position on this. I guess, so after what I shared about adding, there was still discussion about taking away. And I wanted to be clear that there's an opportunity here to add. And I don't think that I think that that's an opportunity for us to improve our board by adding. And as I've shared, we are an outlier, right? And I'd like to hear why is problematic to add more chairs? Why is that problematic?
So let's go back, Supervisor Lord, were you done, or was that your question the last?
The other
I
city.
wanted to hear
Oh.
if Atwater and Los Palos had talked as well.
Dos Palos had discussed it. They feel that it's heavy on the county side, but that is their council's, opinion. I feel, since I am the smallest of the population up there, that the representation that I have here, and it could be from support from Los Banos, support from Director Silvera, helps getting things accomplished in my small neck of the woods. But I don't understand why you would want to add even more people to the board, because what you proposed was to eliminate 2 or 3 positions. That's how I took it at first. However, when this is the first time that we've all been here, I've been guilty of not coming to the meetings. First of all, because it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But having people miss meetings as well is a point of contention amongst people. So that's how I feel. Take it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess I'll try to reiterate again. So last time we talked about this, it was 2 months ago. It was our last meeting, it was 2 months ago. I think it was more contentious than it needed to be, and it was, you weren't there, but your alternative was there, right? Councilmember Woodland was there, right? There were, my recollection is 2 county supervisors weren't there, but they don't have alternates, right? So either they're there or they're not. There's no backup, which is, I think, a deficiency, a weakness in the current structure. But so this was brought up, and then there was questions about, were Robert's Rules of Order followed, and now we had to bring it back up again, and that's when we got sort of technical on having something teed up for action. And so that's how that ended up on the agenda the way it is today. But I would restate again that I want, more than anything, I want us to take a serious look at what's fair, right? I think that we could do something that is much more equitable and also much more in line with what our peers do. And so that's why I went that forward. And in terms of adding more people, just direct you back to the survey of other jurisdictions that have addressed this issue. by adding more. And there are COGs that have more people on the board. So I don't think what I'm asking for is out of line or should be rejected out of hand. I think it deserves serious discussion. And I would go into that discussion and conversation with the starting point of no one would lose their seat. There's a way that we can add to.
Who are you going to add to? Do you want other council members to be added to because you have the biggest population? You want to have bigger representation because you have a bigger population? Is that what you're trying to get across? I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah, let me.
That's what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to be very clear. I've got, numbers up on the board. I've got
Right.
surveys.
I see that.
And to me, it's inequitable that we have, 31% of the county population in the city of Merced and have only 9% representation. So the solution would be to come up with something that we can all live with, but that's different. And I think that starting point of that conversation for me would be let's not take anything away from folks, and let's talk about adding. And I think certainly the city of Merced would be the primary candidate for adding because we have the largest population. And so that is the ask, is to have that conversation.
Well, then why couldn't I add somebody because I have the lowest population and I need the most votes because I can't get anything done in my population? See, you can go both ways with that. So, am I wrong? Okay, well, I'll be quiet.
I know there's somebody from the public that would like to make a comment, and I think with time constraint, so we want to go ahead and open it up for public comment real quick, and then we'll come back to Paul. Paul, you're on the queue.
I want to go now.
Okay, Paul, go ahead. Go now.
If you don't mind, Chair.
No, don't mind at all.
Turn this on. Good dialogue back and forth. I think to be closed-minded on something like this isn't good. I think where we're at today, we're going into 2020. And we haven't always been the best at what we do here in Merced County. I think we're striving to do better. I think we're moving in that direction. I think there's a lot of positive progress. I think it was brought up that San Joaquin County, Stanislaus County, Madera, Fresno, Tulare, Kings, and Kern do some kind of a combination of a balance. And I would defend to the end that if there were 3 county supervisors, that any one of those county supervisors on the board would not support somebody on the west side or somebody on the east side. I think that I've watched all the supervisors for the last 30 years, and they fight for what's right for the county. I think that's really important as we as council members fight for other communities, Gustine or Dos Palace or Merced. When things are right, they're right, and we fight for those. I think we're getting all hung up on the numbers and who gets what share and population. I think that we should learn from where we've been for the last 50 years in Merced County. We've been pretty good at being the best at being the worst. Maybe these other counties are doing something right, and I think the mayor from Los Banos brought up, there's some new energy with the board, whether it be some of the older seasoned members here that are now kind of getting a little bit excited. I think there's an opportunity maybe to move in a different direction and try it out. Nobody's saying, I didn't hear anybody say this will be in stone forever. These agreements come back. Maybe there's a hybrid. I hear both sides. I think there's a benefit to both. And, I've never witnessed any member on the board go after one jurisdiction or one city or east side or west side. I think that we're always trying to move all the projects forward. And I think we change the makeup of the board. I don't think that would change either.
Thank you. At this time, I think we have some people from the public that wanted to make a comment because of time constraints. I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Chairperson McDaniels and directors. I'm the reason it was brought forward, because I have to leave at 5 o'clock to get to a meeting similar to some of the others, and so it's not his fault, it was mine. I'm the one who requested, so there's nobody else. First of all, I'd like to welcome you, Gustine, and the West Side, and what MCAG has done for us in the last couple of years has been fantastic. Prior to that, Gustine is pretty much at a standstill getting any things done, or getting any support. But I'd like to talk about the organization, MCAG, and fundamentally I'm opposed to it, because you're asking us to give up representation. And I'm kind of speaking not only as a city manager for the city of Gustine, but also a citizen of Bolico, both of which fall under Supervisor Ferrer, or Director Ferrer's area. And everything out there, the roads and stuff are out there atrocious, and nothing's being done out there until he got in, and now he's starting to do some changes out there. My initial response was, what are you trying to achieve? And you've actually come forward and kind of done that. I was going to say, has anybody articulated exactly what it is? Has anybody analyzed it? And you've analyzed it to your favor, yeah. But if you really look at this that you put up here, which is really beneficial for me, is that you're saying you're misrepresented because you only have one person and you have all the people in the community, or a majority of it. But if you really are truthful, and Director Silvera pointed this out, thank you, is that you have 4 people plus yourself representing Merced and can get anything done you really want to do. It's 5. Why you need one more vote? You are there. Now with us in Gustine, Dos Palos, and some of the smaller cities, we have to try and work together, and we've been doing that. So I think if you went, instead of population, went by land mass, and then let's see what they look like. But you don't like that because the numbers changed. So, if you go by, but let's do land mass, because if you look at land mass, you're gonna, we don't change. Luckily we're bigger than Dos Palos, but we're 2 square miles. Well, how big are you?
If we incorporated, we would be bigger than you. We would.
Well,
If we incorporated South
but
Don
you're not, so you're still small.
We're still 56.
So, all right, so, but, so, yeah, we can play with the numbers, and, the old adage, you live by stats, you die by stats. And so, yeah, this is all geared towards that, and if you go by population, that's great, but if you change the land mass, the numbers change. But I don't think it's fair to everybody and the citizens of the county here to sit there and say, yeah, you're taking away their representation and not advertising it. What I'm kind of curious about, and has anybody notified or agendized this on the Merced or MCAG Citizens Advisory Board? I don't think so. It hasn't been there that I'm aware of. Don't point fingers, sir. I'm just saying this out loud to all of you. It hasn't. At least not for this year, because I've checked all the agendas for this year, and it hasn't. But in this day of age of transparency and social media outreach, I see nothing. Nothing's been talked about, nothing's been shared with any of the citizens or anything else. So, I'm just curious why you're rushing into this. Why are you taking away the voice of the communities? If that's the case, let the communities vote on this. I don't think you need to add people. I don't think you need to take it away. I think you need to work together. And I've seen that coming now in the last couple of years. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Seeing that, we'll bring it up. We were doing a lot of matters. We'll go back to Lee here in just a second.
You just closed public comment then?
Yeah, just close public comment. So actually, I had something I was going to add, and I'm going to let Lee finish up on what she was doing. But I just wanted, this is something we work, grid that we work off with the county. But the entire regional road network within the county is 576 miles. Regional roads within unincorporated areas is 510 miles. Roads within the incorporated cities is 66, and it's broke out as Los Banos has 11 miles. Dos Palos has 1 mile. Gustine has 4 miles. City of Merced has 30 miles. City of Livingston has 7 miles. And the city of Atwater has 13 miles. And those are just numbers of regional roads. And I think that's what this body oversees is regional road projects. But at this time, I'll go ahead and yield back to Supervisor Laura so she can finish up on her comments.
Thank you. Just quickly a comment, Director Murphy. You said that the city council came to a consensus. And my interpretation of the discussion is that there was no consensus, but the public can view that footage and decide for themselves. If there are no other questions or comments,
There are questions and comments. No, there are questions and comments.
So, yes, Director Volta.
You know, thank you, City Manager Dunford, for speaking, but I did key in on one sentence. You said you didn't get anything till Mr. Pereira got here. And that's the whole problem, depending upon the representation. And I didn't like hearing that. I thought, you know, that if that's what was true, that was true, that's true. And thank you, Mr. Pereira, for getting some stuff if that's the case. But, you know, I look at the stats, and I look at the weighted projects, and I look at $750 million on the east side and nothing on the west side, and Los Palace, Gustine, and Los Banas always have to fight tooth and nail to even get a little bit. And I don't know how you're going to rectify that. And that's the perception. That's the perception on the west side. There's an even bigger problem here, other than just the weighting. It's the fairness throughout all the supervisorial districts. And so I hope that is a new day. I hope we can remedy that. And that's why I suggested a weighted vote that achieves everything and still has 5 supervisors to take it done. It doesn't take care of any one's representation, and gives the cities a little more edge. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Murphy.
Yeah, so, you know, some of Doug's comments were you know, directed at me, which is understandable because I'm the one that brought this forward. And I would just say, I mean, a couple of things that I heard were, you know, well, I think there was some notion, and unfortunately he left, or I wouldn't want to mischaracterize what he said, but, you know, doing now, heard the stats, right? You can move the stats and do it a different way. And I agree with all that. Like, I agree with all that. But where that leads me is, let's have that discussion, right? And what I heard was, why are you trying to rush this? And I would say, I'm not trying to, I want to have that discussion. And a move to kill this is a rush to judgment, right? I'm asking and sort of advocating for the opposite of that and agreeing with what he said. I don't claim to have a perfect view of this, and I would love to have the conversation. I think the road miles, you know, dimension is an important piece of this. We've hashed through some of this on the Measure V front, right, in terms of allocations, right? We're a transportation agency, especially on the MCMG side, right? We've got a one-size-fits-all board for, you know, the JPA, the transit, right? But, you know, I'm advocating for 2 things. You know, the overarching thing is, let's have this conversation. Let's convince each other of you know, whatever the approach should be, and not just take Director Murphy's numbers. I mean, I think those numbers are right, but they're only one set of numbers, to Mr. Dunford's point. Right? Let's hear what the other viewpoints are, and let's not rush it. So that's I wanted to sort of respond to that. Unfortunately, understandably,
Thank you, Director Murphy. Director Creighton.
I think it's imperative that we do have discussion. My council, we haven't discussed this one way or another yet, because this was going to be the first discussion, so I knew to take back to them what we were talking about, what the supervisor's concerns were, what the other jurisdictions' concerns were, pros and cons. I think it's really, really important that we have the discussion and we find out why these other jurisdictions are the way they are. Why are we set up the way we're set up? How did it come to be, and why is it truly advantageous the way it is? Would it be better with less? Would it be better with more? I know I can feel the tension. I know that it's a territorial thing, but again, all my years living in Merced County, from I've never seen one jurisdiction go after another jurisdiction. We've always been a team. So I'm not fearful of that. I don't have that fear. I think as professionals and as supervisors, as city council members and mayors, you're always going to do what's right and fair and balanced. Because at the end of the day, we do things on the west side, we do things on the east side, and there is a bigger chunk on the east side being divvied up. There's, the new UC Merced. If we didn't have that, we would be getting all this stuff. Maybe not. Los Manis has fought for 1978 was the first time I heard that Los Manis wanted to do a technology center out there in Los Manis, and they needed the roads and they needed some other stuff to get things done. And here we are 40 plus years later. We need to look at this holistically as one organism in the county of Merced. What's the best? How do we move people from Los Manis to Atwater and Merced? Are we moving them to Stanislaus County better than we're moving them to our other jurisdiction? So I really think it's important that we continue the discussion. I'll take this back, as long as we don't take any action today, to my council and share with them what we discussed here today, share with them what other counties do. I'd like to get their feedback before we take any action. I think it's a great discussion. I think we're having some really good feedback, and it's opened my eyes on a few things, so I appreciate it.
One more. So I'm just going to, because in the interest of time, if you all want to entertain discussing this further and coming up with possible solutions, I'm okay with that. What's before us today is an ask for a reduction. I'm not in support of a reduction. I can't see a scenario where reducing the numbers that the Board of Supervisors has would make our organization better. But if a committee that wants to be set up where this can be given time, so it can be brought out to the public, you can ask constituencies what they think on it. Hey, I'm fine with that. But for right now, I'm asked to vote on what's in front of me. I cannot support that. And so if there are no other further comments, I would make a motion to deny changing our bylaws to go from 11 to 9 with that being to reduce members and supervisors. I hope I covered that.
Amendment?
So,
Okay.
Unless there's a second for this, amend that if that's the case, we add that we establish a commission to look at this and give the jurisdictions time to bring it back to the council.
amended to his motion.
Amended to addition to
His motion.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So his motion is still on the floor.
Okay. With the amendment, he said he was fine with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you get a restate of the amendment?
Restate of the amendment is at this time to establish a subcommission to investigate the possibility of different ways of I don't know, alleviating some of this tension and some kind of discovery to see if there are other ways to structure this body. Stacey, is that clear enough? Okay.
So the motion that was accepted for that amendment to your motion? Okay.
Second.
Did you want to comment?
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure we have clarity. Do we want to say who those people are, just appoint a commission, and maybe 4 people? We don't need to have a majority of anything. I want to have fact finders that deal in.
Can the,
Ad hoc committee.
Yeah, forming an ad hoc committee was not actually agendized today, so the public did not have reasonable notice that that might be an action taken today. Not to say that that cannot happen, but I believe that for the Brown Act, that committee would need to be formed at the next meeting. With notice.
Your question was, can the chair do it?
yes.
I mean, I'm fine with that too. I mean, I'd certainly like to be a part of it, just because I spent a lot of time on it. But, you know, in my mind, it would be, you know, 2 city representatives and 2 county representatives, or something like that, right? And I'm agnostic as to who it is, but I think that may be a worthwhile structure to consider.
I think that's a great idea. I think you should have one on the east side, one on the west side. As you guys looked at that, all the comment, and then supervisors, same thing.
So I'm okay with the motion. I mean, you know, if we need to bring it back another meeting, or if you determine that he can do it on his own as a chair, I'm open to that either way. But I'm in favor of the motion.
Sorry, yeah, move forward with the motion. The chair, if this board is fine with the chair having that authority, it's not directly given to him in any of the governing documents, but there's nothing prohibiting it either. If you are, the staff can be given the authority to do that as well with the directions that has been given by the board regarding payment.
Can we restate the second? Who made the second?
Are there further comments or public? Is there any more input after this discussion? Seeing none, we have a first and a second. Should we do a roll call vote on this?
Well, why don't you just ask who's against it? We want that.
Director Craig?
Yes.
Director Espinoza?
Yes.
Director Vogt?
Yes.
Director Lord?
Yes.
Director Murphy?
Yes.
Director Olivera?
Yes.
Director Pereira?
Yes.
Director Silvera?
Yes.
Director Fields?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Guess what, Ken? It's good to see you, sir. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Thank you. I feel the pressure's on. I'll make this short. I'll put my PowerPoint away. So, good afternoon, or is it good evening?
Ken Baxter.
From Directors. My name is Ken Baxter, and I'm with Caltrans District 10. I'm the Deputy Director there for Planning, Local Agency Assistance, and the Environmental Support Team. So we do a lot of work with all the cities and counties, bridge replacements and pavement projects, things like that. So our director, our District 10 Director, Dan McElhaney, could not make it. He had a schedule conflict, so he asked me to make an appearance for him tonight. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I have a few things, I'll make it very quick here. We have a new Caltrans Director that was announced recently from the Governor's Office, and so it's Mr. Tokes Omi Chalkin, and he, as I understand it, he starts about mid-October. Don't have an exact date, but he comes from the Tennessee Department of Transportation, and I understand he's the deputy there for planning and for environmental division type thing for the state. So I wanted to share that. The Route 99 northbound Livingston project, some good news. I'm sure all of you probably have heard. It looks like we have a groundbreaking scheduled for October the 29th. I don't have the details on that. Excuse me. And the construction will be targeted for November the 1st. And some even better news is the bids came in under about 5% under the engineering cost estimate. So that's phenomenal, because we are seeing the trend to have increases. The competition is pretty great. So that's good news. The Livingston Route 99 southbound, right now that's slated for construction in 2021-22. And that's going to be funded in the 2020 SIP, predominantly using Interregional Improvement Program funds for that. We also have a State Route 99 pavement rehab project, and this is in the vicinity going through at the Outwater area there, and it's about 4 miles long. And so we're looking at a contract award in January 2020 for that project. And it's going to include not only the restoration of the pavement, but about 1,250 feet of deceleration lanes, both directions for the off-ramps at Applegate. So that's kind of what that project's all about. The State Route 140, Planada, our safety team is starting to do a traffic investigation of that, because as you know, we have some crossing issues there, so they're looking at that, and that investigation is underway. I want to announce too that on September the 4th, our director and myself and some others met with Mayor Blas Spanis and your Public Works Director and City Manager, and Stacy was there, and Matt, and thank you all. I thought we had a wonderful discussion about what we can do, and Pioneer Road, and potential funding and the future for all of that area. So I want to say thank you, Mayor, for hosting that. I appreciate that immensely, and I know Dan does too, without question. And so just a couple more quick items here. I'm trying to go through this really fast. Apologize for that. Unless you really want me to slow down, I'll do that. I can do that. So our 2020-2021 fiscal year planning grant cycle is it's actually open now. It's going to close on October the 11th at 5 o'clock, and you can submit applications electronically. Statewide, this is just a phenomenal windfall where you can get seed money to do studies. This program actually started 19 years ago. When I worked in the headquarters, I was one of the persons that started this with Comey Giese when he was an office chief, and I was a branch chief. So I have good memories of this program. It's wonderful. And what I even liked better, about 4 or 5 years ago, we came up with a way to fund these projects. So the communities go back and they do the studies through charrettes and different things, and they come up with these wonderful things to do with complete streets, etc. Now we have, as you probably all know, the active transportation program where we can actually fund these things that we identify in the communities. So, you know, many years in state service, Hoos County, right, 40 years and 6 months for me. This has just been one of the highlights, I think, to see the evolution of all this come to fruition. Because, you know, before 2000, we didn't have that. And after 2000, we didn't really have the money to do the capital side. So it's a great thing. The last thing I want to say is that if you haven't heard, there's a 2019 California Economic Summit. It's going to be in Fresno, November the 7th and the 8th at Doubletree. And I understand that Governor Gavin Newsom is going to speak, I believe, on the 8th at 1 o'clock. And so it's regions rise together. And so it's a great concept about how important it is. And right now, as I understand it, the governor's offering research to looking at the valley, the San Joaquin Valley, and the inland empire areas to really get a handle on what our needs are and ways to collaborate and improve the economy, jobs, housing, transportation, things like that. So with that, I think I better stop. Any homework assignments, whatever, maybe you can call me or send me an email, or I see a hand. I'll take that too.
Thank you. I know you mentioned Highway 140 and Plainsburg. We were discussing in the MAC that, you know, they don't want the roundabout. They want the Jayhawk system. You could probably be a lot cheaper. The roundabout is too much money. We don't have it in MCHG. We don't have it in the county. It'd be too long to do anyway. So the Jayhawk system is probably a lot cheaper. I know that Hillmar's going to get one over there. So if you could have the designs of that one, if you can email them, because I have a MAC meeting on the 2nd of October, so that way I can show what it looks like.
I can pass that back to Larry Hernandez and Samuel Jordan. He does switch at the executive management level. He's in charge of traffic operations. But the way I understand it, they're going to do the investigation, and if it's warranted, the state will pay for that. And, you know, I believe they want to look at the signal issues and the Hawk system and the roundabout. If that's, you know, not going to be supported by the community, then I think we want to pursue that. But I can glean whatever information I can get tomorrow and send you an email and give you an update on that. I'll give you the right contact, which would probably be Larry Hernandez. But I'll follow up with that.
Do you think you have something that you can send to the MAC meeting on the 2nd?
Oh, okay. Actually, to send?
2nd at 6 p.m.
Of October?
October, yes.
Okay. The answer is yes.
You could email me confirmation, and that way we'll put it on.
I misunderstood.
The second one is the Highway 59 safety and El Nido. I know that there's, you know, haystacks out there with slow down, and, you know, the citizens are concerned about, you know, the unsafeness of, you know, passengers flying by and kids crossing there. But the school's right next to it, you know, not on El Nido Road. So when they come out, it's just everybody's flying by, and all the trucks are flying by there too as well. If you can look at that, maybe installing, you know, lowering the signage there on the speed, or bigger signs, please.
Yeah. I'll get back to you.
And the last one is a question on the Mariposa Bridge, F-59 of raising Mariposa Bridge for floods. It's always every winter it's flooded and
Is that the Moccasin Creek? I'm trying to remember, Mariposa Creek?
Mariposa.
Yeah, Mariposa, yeah. They've got a project underway to elevate that.
Yeah.
It just needs to be done. So that is underway, is my understanding.
Maybe I can get an update maybe next
Update.
week. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it. Okay. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Baxter? Supervisor Pereira?
Yeah, I thought maybe Mr. Director Murphy was going to bring this up, but you're doing a project at 59 and Olive. Olive in Merced.
I'm sorry, Olive? I said
North Highway 59.
Right.
At Olive Avenue
Right.
and Santa Fe.
Got it.
So on the east side, you're putting in a median. It looks like it's going to be about 4 foot wide. And on G Street in Merced, they did a wonderful project and put cobble in there. And that would be a wonderful surface. So I don't know if it's too late to have something like that done there.
I will look into that. I'll talk to the project manager. I can do that tomorrow. I know exactly what you mean. That looks nice. It's low maintenance, kind of a hardscape thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say the same thing, echo.
Okay. That's a part of my, third time's a charm, so I need one more.
My wife and brother-in-law.
Okay, you got it. Yeah, I'll look into that and get back to you. Yeah.
Is there anything else? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Thanks.
Item 17, information for discussion. Is there any questions or do folks have any comments on what's A through F? If not, we'll go ahead and go down to transportation planning and Measure B update. Information only, Mr. Fell.
It's not on.
Push mute and hold.
Until the green light comes on.
Now it's on. Is it on?
It is on.
Okay, just two things. So one is that back in March, we distributed a memo that talked about the Measure B allocation formula. And so that gets updated starting July 1st. So you'll start to be getting monies based on the new formula. So just so you know. And then the other is, you probably saw in the news that the safe vehicle rules been published, or whatever the word is, by EPA and the federal government, and will become effective 60 days, and it's revoking California's waiver to set their own emissions and all that stuff. So this is going to have a really big impact on California. You can see in the articles all the different stuff. But we'll bring some information back to you as we know more, because there are a lot of questions about how it will affect us. So mostly it has to do with the transportation conformity stuff, where the major regional projects, those have to pass conformity. Things that are already in the books are fine. The Livingston Whiting project, that's already passed all that stuff, so it's fine. But this is obviously going to be a big thing, so we'll bring information back to you. That's all I have. If you have any questions on anything.
Any questions for Mr. Fell? Okay, we'll move on to item 19, Measure B draft 2019 implementation plan update. Mr. Fell.
All right, so the regional project committees, they made their recommendations in May and June, and based on that, the board directed us to release the draft implementation plan. We did that. We had 2 hearings. We got no comments. So we're bringing it back for your consideration and adoption. And there are some regional funding agreements here that were put on the agenda pending this action, I guess.
Okay, this is an action item. Is there any questions for, yes?
No questions, and I just want to say thank everybody, because it was the first time I undertook the Measure B projects committees. I was on both of those, and I think that there was a lot of good discussion, and we came up with some really great solutions. And so if there are no other further questions or comments, I make a motion to adopt the Measure B 2019 implementation plan.
That's a tough one to say.
Information, huh?
So I do have a motion on the floor.
Second.
And a second. Are there further discussions or comments? Anything from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, if there are no further comments, I would go ahead and make a motion to pass the consent agenda, which is approving those funding agreements that were just approved in the implementation plan.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Mr. Creighton was the second on that. Is there further discussion or questions? Seeing none. Any comments from the public? I have first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And move on to number 21. Mr. Feld, get back up there. Measure B, Regional Funding Agreement Amendment, Henry Miller Avenue. This is an action item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Directors. So the Henry Miller rehabilitation project, that's a Measure B regional project funded on the west side. The county started that project and they basically completed the project from 165 to Turner Island Road, and they have some cost savings. They were able to do that project for less than the budget. So that, if you recall, the project was originally from 33 to Turner Island Road, and because of the, the way the deliberations went and the amount of money that was assigned to that project, it was basically split into two phases. The second phase was just approved in the second implementation plan. So they basically asked if there was a way to take that cost savings and apply it towards phase two. And so that's what we're bringing to you, to ask for your direction to do an amendment to their funding agreement. And basically what it would do is change the scope. It wouldn't change the funding amount. It would just change the scope so that they could do part of phase two with the cost savings from phase one. So that's basically the concept. We wanted to see if the board wanted us to pursue that. And if you do, we would suggest that, this is a case-by-case basis, just this project, because we are coming back with, before we do the next implementation plan, to develop policies and procedures for this kind of thing. We're new at this, but these sorts of things are going to happen. There's going to be cost savings. There's probably, unfortunately, going to be, some costs that are higher. So we want to have some procedures in place going forward. But for this one, it seems like this is consistent with the direction that was provided by the West RPC from the get-go and by this board.
Thank you, Mr. Feld. So this would complete that project then?
It would be part of,
Mr. Chair, if I could, very familiar with the project. It's Henry Miller. They started at Turner Island. They got to Highway 165 or Merced Springs. The next phase of the project is to go right across the street and continue. I would say because of the county really taking a look at it and trying to find ways to save dollars, they were actually able to have cost savings, and I think it really rewards good behavior, right? And so that if they were asking to stick it to a different project, that would be a different story. But in this case, they're just going to go. It's going to allow them to continue across the road to add more miles to the project. So if there aren't any other further questions, I would make a motion to approve the regional funding agreement amendment for Henry Miller Avenue with the language in this is a case-by-case basis until we develop policies regarding how we will handle this in the future.
Second.
Okay, who was the second?
Try it again.
Okay. Second by Walton. Is there any further discussion or questions for Mr. Feld on this? Any comments from the public? We'll bring it back. I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we move on to number 22, Measure B, Citizens Oversight Committee appointments.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Before you is an open seat for your consideration, which was vacated by the previous representative not seeking reappointment. This is an at-large seat for the Bicycle Transit or Pedestrian Interest Group representative. We had applications open over the summer for about 7 weeks. We received 2 of them before you today. And staff would request that you either take action this evening to appoint one of those 2 or to nominate a subcommittee of the board to make that selection on your behalf.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Michael.
I just want to add that a brief synopsis of each of the 2 candidates is on page 122 of your agenda.
So what is the pleasure of the board? Yes, Joe.
I wouldn't be comfortable voting for people I don't know to put one against the other. I don't know either one of them. They both look, by their applications, they both look qualified, but who am I to pick between the 2?
No, you're absolutely right, Joe. Is there further comments? So are you making that into the motion for the or?
I'll second it.
Yeah. So moved.
Okay, so I have a first and a second. Do we want to establish the committee at this point as well?
It is agendized to nominate 3 governing board members to
Right.
form the subcommittee,
So if we're at B, what do we need? Okay, so we can do it with that all in the same motion. Okay, so we need to amend your motion. Who would you like to help you in this process, Joe?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, is there volunteers who would like to be a part of this? Okay, so we'll make it Joe and myself and Scotty. You guys,
We
you
should
take
get-
that in amendment to the,
You should get an east side representative.
Joe?
Busy side.
me?
Darren?
Yeah, no, I mean, instead, you know, one east side person, west side person, and a supervisor. That way you get one from each group.
Exactly what we have. Oh, we have 2 supervisors.
Yeah.
Nobody volunteered from the east side, though.
I appoint
Nobody
Mayor
volunteered.
Atwater.
That's fine, I'll get off. Mayor Atwater, good enough for me, thank you.
Do you accept?
Now Atwater's getting 2 votes, Mayor.
I don't want to be disproportionate, I'll yield to Merced.
I nominate this Lisa.
Already passed that. Okay, so,
I withdraw my motion, and you two do it.
second,
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know.
yes, yes. McDaniel, Silvera, and Olivera. Who has a second?
Second.
All right, let's go.
You must be hungry.
There's a motion.
Farms and table.
Okay, so
So
we had a
We'll make
motion
that
and a
motion
second,
if we
so that was an amendment to the motion.
No, we're
Going
going
back
back
to
to
the
the
original
original thing when you appointed yourself. I'm fine with that.
So Director Olivera made a motion to do a subcommittee, and Director
Pereira
Pereira
seconded.
seconded
Yeah.
that, and then there was a nomination for that motion to include the Directors Olivera, Silvera, and McDaniel make that subcommittee.
Correct.
And then there was a second motion to nominate, to appoint
Lisa.
Lisa Kaiser Grant to the committee.
So which one do we take first?
That's a council question.
you vote the first motion.
The first motion, yeah.
It's
Yeah, because it was a standing,
it's not.
Call for the question on the first
You
one.
can't have a second motion.
right, you can't have a second motion in it.
I'm just trying to say.
I know. Okay, call for the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed? No opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
All right, so it's you three, right? Okay.
Number 23, authorize agreement for Deb's Van Pool project. Oh, you don't look like Italian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Mr. Bell.
On behalf of Natalia Austin. So we've been doing the Van Pool project with Dibs for a little over a year and a half now, and it's been going well. We have added some van pools. Those have a lot of emission reductions with each van pool. So we're asking to extend that basically by adding another $85,000 to CMAQ to extend that contract to do the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion on the floor for approval
Second.
and a second. Is there further discussion? Comment from the public? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This is an action item. This comes over to Stacy.
You
Or-
say Stacy too.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Directors. Just a couple slides. So for the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, we did have a board workshop on August 29th. Many directors were present. It was an informational presentation. The slides from that workshop are included in your packet. And just kind of as a recap, so that the purpose of that workshop was to go over what the RTIP and STIP are, basically 5-year transportation budget, One of the key things is that California Transportation Commission is who decides this, and they set all the rules. So MCAG is making a proposal to the CTC, and they approve or deny that. So it's very important to follow all their rules. They issue a fund estimate. We talked about that. That information is in the staff report as well. Talked about the funding or the project requirements. So, for example, having a project study report or equivalent, funding an entire phase, having a funding plan through construction, all those sorts of things. Talked a little bit about the STIP cycles. So that's the thing with kind of the waterfall where you have a 5-year and then you have another 5-year and they overlap for 3 years. And that's a key thing because when you're making a proposal, you're asking for a certain year. And then the next STIP, you're talking about the next couple of years. And then we also talked about regional projects and how the actions that have been occurring with Measure B regional projects have kind of added some context or additional information about what the MCAG regional projects are. And those regional projects are funded through construction with the exception of AME Phase 1B and the Pioneer Road project. So that provided a basis for the last bit of the discussion at the workshop and the staff recommendation. I'll get into that. I think that's my next slide. But anyway, that's all based on the discussion that was had at that workshop and the previous materials that had been on the August staff report. So the request for action that we have before you is to direct staff to prepare a draft RTIP. And that would include 3 things, and that's for review and comment, and then it comes back to the board for final adoption. But we're asking for some direction on what to include in that draft. And so we're recommending, asking for programming all the planning funds. So there's a planning set aside that can be used for important things like tracking project progress, and it's a supplement to the planning funds that we get from the federal government. Also construction of Atwater Merced Expressway Phase 1B to get it up to Santa Fe. And then also establishing the Pioneer Road widening project as the priority for future RTIP STIP program. So that's the requested action, and if you've provided that direction, then what we would do is we would develop that draft RTIP, and that would include policy language about the Pioneer Road project, so for the future shares. It would also include the funding plan for the Pioneer Road project, and that would be done in consultation with City of Los Banos staff. And it would include the prior materials about AME, and so there would be the specific documents that CTC needs to see for the AME, so that would be part of the draft as well. And then in October, while the RTIP draft is out for comment, and we would have a public hearing at the October board meeting, we would also bring some funding options for governing board consideration on Pioneer Road project. So there are some things that are at MCAG discretion that could be done. And we'd like to bring that in October for the board to consider and look at those things. So that's what we would do. And then the last slide I have is just to go over the schedule again. So right now we're here seeking direction. If that's given, we would release the draft. October 24th, we'd have the public hearing and some discussion about funding sources. And then come back in November for approval or adoption. And that adoption has to happen. We have to get the RTIPs to CTC by December 15th. So that's basically our schedule, how it looks. And if you have any questions on any of that, I'd be happy to answer it.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Yes.
Yes, I have a few clarifications, and I know it's getting late, so hopefully we can just take care of this. The recommended action should be clarified, made clear that we're not assigning any funding amounts to either project right now. Is that correct with this action?
This action is not assigning the funding amounts. It's including construction of AME 1B and establishing priority for Pioneer project.
Okay. And we're also, so we're not assigning any funding amounts. I just want to be clear right now with this action.
Staff is not putting, we're not saying what the amounts are, but we do have the amounts that are necessary for construction of AME 1B.
Right, but that's not part of this action. You have your funding amounts that you're gonna bring forward in your draft plan.
Right,
Okay, but that's not part of the motion today, correct?
right, it doesn't need to be.
Okay, all right, thank you. Second thing would be, we are going to develop a funding plan for Pioneer. That's part of the, does that have to be added to this recommendation?
That's included, I mean, that's what staff's operating from, that's.
Okay, but it doesn't say it in the
It could
in the
certainly
board
be added.
recommendation.
I mean, yeah, more clarity could certainly be provided.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, okay. And it also talks about establishing the Pioneer for future RIP, STIP programming. I'd like to be clear that we're not just talking about future funding. I'd like to be clear that we're going to look at every source of funding, present and future, in addition to the RIP and STIP. So when this comes back, AME has its funding plan, and the Pioneer project has its funding plan. And then the board will have all the information based on not just the RIP, future RIP and STIP, but every funding source that's available that could be used for Pioneer and could be used for AME.
I think that's the same, I think that's our understanding as well.
Okay, I just like that to be part of the motion, that's all.
We'll be looking at current funding sources beyond the STIP and also the future STIP. So yes, to your question.
Yeah, current and future, yeah. I mean, I don't know how we put all that in, but I just want to make sure that these things are in there. And then when it comes back to this body, that everything is clear, everything has been brought forward, and we're not missing a trick on either project.
Motion to approve with mayor's comments.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Are there further comments or questions? How about from the public? Oh, Supervisor Barr.
Thank you. Just pointing out page 140, next steps, includes all of that.
Well, I'd like it to be stated the way I asked. Thank you.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Let's actually, public, was there any comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposition? Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, if I could make a motion to table item 25 to a future date. I know it's getting late, and I know the mayor has to leave, I have to leave, I have to be in Las Vegas presenting. I'm supposed to be there in 3 minutes, and I'm not going to take that, but if we could just, if there's no other item left on the agenda that is a pressing matter, I would please ask to
Postpone 27 as well.
postpone the rest of the agenda. Is that a problem?
Okay. You can have dinner. So that's, you amend what your.
Yes, please.
And your second, Director Murphy? Okay. We have a first and a second?
Just please make sure that it does not lay on the table, because lay on the table requires us to come back and make a motion to put it back on the table.
I asked just to postpone, not to put on the table, just postpone until the next meeting. The next meeting.
Next meeting, okay. So I have a first and a second. Is there comments from the public? Seeing none. Further comments out there? All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Now we have other reports. I think the executive director did include her report in there, right? Director's reports. I do have to report out that I did go back to Washington DC on behalf of Valley Voice. We had some really good discussions. I do want to mention that Department of Transportation has loans available to us at this time that are, with the current interest rates, are better than bonds by far. If they're in a rural area, it's actually a 0.5%. I mean, that is cheap money, and it sounds like they're trying to get these out. So, just wanted to bring that to your attention, and I did say that Senator Feinstein did commit the $3.2 million towards the Stockton Diamond, which is the reason why you get caught on the railroad tracks within Merced County all the time on this side. So, is there any other directors who'd like to make comments?
Yeah, just like I want to post another agenda item real quick on videotaping of the meetings and posting them on the website or live. I know they already have the hours on there for next month, so I would like that. You know, we discussed and it was said that the CG was working on it, but I haven't seen anything. Is that it now? Okay.
The first step of that was to try to make sure that we can record all locations, which Gustine and Dos Palos are the two that aren't, and today is our first attempt to do that. And as soon as we know we can have everything up, that's our next phase, is to have them available online.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Director Espinoza. Are there further comments? Yes. Mayor Bowles.
Yes, I pushed Supervisor McDaniels out of the way and got to meet Mike Pence.
I will.
Well, actually, that didn't
Further
happen,
comments?
but I did get to meet Mike Pence.
We'll adjourn at this time. Thank you.